Hello friends, welcome back to a very impromptu video. I realized that in my 2024 book audit video, I did not fully audit every area of my shelves. There's this whole big stack that is books that I don't want to keep anymore. So later on in the video, we will be adding some books back since we're getting rid of this stack. There is now a little bit of space. So we will be doing a haul later. I'm going to show you which books I'm getting rid of and then explain why, because not all of them are just bad. Some of them are bad, but not all of them are bad. So let's get into it. Did you guys ever have your parents take you to like the photo booth at like Target or like Kmart or wherever it was, and you'd have to get like annual birthday pictures, and then they would give you these like props and you'd have to like lean on them and smile? I have lots of those photos. We're gonna go through these books and I'm quickly just gonna tell you, were they worth it? Were they not worth it? Maybe you can either find a good book recommendation or not waste your time. First book, this very sad, waterlogged, I don't even know what this is, this sort of green goopy substance. This copy of The Secret. If you don't know, The Secret is, and there's also like a movie companion that I haven't seen and probably won't watch. And it's all about manifestation and like the law of attraction and that kind of thing. I went into it pretty blindly. I had an inkling that that's what it was about, but I didn't actually know that's what it was about. So this was very much like, what would you call it? Child's play for me. Some of these things I really truly gleaned a lot of insightful things from. Thoughts I'd never had before, a different perspective, different way of thinking about things, and I think that's amazing. I don't need this copy. I am going to keep all of my Abraham Hicks stuff. There is like some truth in there for sure, but The Secret did not hit in the same way that the Law of Attraction books hit, so I'm gonna step away from that one. This one, totally different. Now we're moving into like normal fiction, which is what most of this stack is. This is Ferrante's The Lying Life of Adults. This was not amazing. It sounds like something I would love. It's like a coming of age. It takes place in Naples. The main girl, she's Giovanna. She's a 14-year-old girl, and it's kind of like her firsts, growing up and experiencing things for the first time as a teenager. So it sounds wonderful, but I don't know. There was just something about it. While I was in it, it was okay, but it just wasn't anything. I don't know. There was no magic to it. There was nothing super special about it. People love Ferrante, but I think I need to read her other stuff, I guess. This is the one that sounded like it would be the one that I would most enjoy, though. Unfortunately, this one I am giving away. Didn't love it, didn't hate it. All right, next up, I will mention, is it both? Yes. This trilogy. Are they calling it Diary of an Oxygen Thief trilogy? This little trilogy is so dark. If you just want to read about a male main character who is just absolutely deplorable and treats women really, really horribly, I have a series for you. I knew that going in and I was fully prepared. Sometimes you do just want to read about just somebody who's just like nasty and gross and self-centered and mean and sex-obsessed and just, you know, kind of deplorable. Here I have Diary of an Oxygen Thief, Chameleon in a Candy Store, and Eunuchs and Nymphomaniacs. I did read all of them. As you can see, my tabbies in the last one got pretty sparse. They're very repetitive. I didn't feel like there was, from what I can recall, a good character arc. So I didn't really feel like he changed very much. People say they're kinky, artsy, and swoon-worthy. I would not say they're swoon-worthy at all. People compare him to Fitzgerald. I don't know enough. I haven't read enough F. Scott Fitzgerald, so don't have enough of kind of a literary background to make that comparison, but basically they are supposed to be realistic accounts of what we do to each other and what we allow to have done to us. It says it is about how we love today and how increasingly we tried to avoid it altogether. So sort of a modern love tale, I guess, but again, they're very dark, they're very bleak. You can kind of tell from the covers too. I do feel like the covers give a good vibe. Just nothing special. If you like really dark, kind of twisted characters, then you might like this, but don't expect him to change, okay? Don't expect him to say any good things about women. All right, next up is another one so bad. Just so bad. And I don't like saying things like that, just in case like the author were to ever see this, because I know as a writer how much time and how much energy, and it takes a lot. Like, it takes a lot to write something and to write something well, but I wouldn't say that this was written well. I think I was maybe just expecting too much. I have mentioned this one before, The Deer and the Dragon by Piper CJ, as a potential good read for fans of Sarah J. Maas, but I do not like Sarah J. Maas books. I missed the ship. I missed the boat on that one for sure. Anyway, this is about fae, and I don't read a lot about fae, and so I think that's part of the reason why I didn't like maybe super enjoy it. But there's not a lot of fae characters anyway, like, and the characters who are in here weren't particularly compelling. Our main character is a sex worker, and that was another issue that I had. In the beginning, she says she's trying to destigmatize sex work. There's like a whole thing in the beginning about like disclaimers, but she doesn't actually destigmatize it at all. She writes about it in a pretty disturbing way. Yeah, it's really romanticized in a like a really icky way. So I felt like her intentions, she very much did the opposite. And then I didn't really find the interest, like the love interests, like the I don't even remember his name. He's supposed to be the Prince of Hell. I don't know, did he have a name? I'm sure he did. He was very forgettable. I literally don't remember his name. So this was quite a disappointment. It promises, like, it sounds like it's gonna be a romp. Like, it sounds like it's gonna be a really crazy ride. And there was a lot of scenes of just dialogue, a lot of scenes of just like them being in the car and talking, or them being in a cafe and talking, or them being at her apartment and talking. Don't recommend. Next are two Colleen Hoovers that I have not read. I probably won't ever read Colleen Hoover from what I have heard about her on the internet. Not her like as a person, but like her work. Yeah, nothing has ever caught my eye about any of her work. And everything with the most recent movie, which is not one of the ones that I have, sounded really horrible. Just like everything about it. So it just sounds to me, and I could be wrong because I haven't read her before, it sounds to me like there's a lot of like romanticizing of abuse, like abusive relationships and that kind of thing. Got them from my mom. I don't even know if she read them or if she thrifted them and then didn't read them. Thrift Books is gonna give me 50 cents a piece, so they're gonna get these books. No offense to anybody who loves her books, but it's just not the type of thing I would read, which is why they are being donated. All right, next up is one I kind of already mentioned, Throne of Glass. Yeah, I just, again, nothing against Sarah J. Maas, personally. Obviously, she is like prolific in terms of the amount of writing and stories and world building and everything that she is able to do. But I did read this one. I did a whole vlog on this one. I can link it in the cards. And, you know, it wasn't as bad as A Court of Thorns and Roses. It wasn't as bad. So I will give it that. The whole concept of this one is just kind of dumb, to be honest. The whole thing is the king is looking for an assassin. He wants the best assassin to be able to obviously send that person out to kill people who wrong him or offend him or look at him the wrong way or whatever. And we know from like literally chapter 1 that she's the best assassin, Selena. And so instead of just bringing her to the court or to the kingdom, hiring her or whatever, they make up this whole thing with like the games, but she has to battle like 23 other murderers, thieves, and warriors in this competition. And basically it's like to release her from prison, but then she just has to go back to a sort of servitude type role where she's serving as the king's champion, as his assassin. So the whole concept of the games is redundant and silly and completely pointless, because if you know that you have the best assassin, you're not going to pit them against 23 other people who aren't as good. It's not like in the Hunger Games where it like genuinely serves a purpose. You know she's gonna win. There just could have been some other storyline. I found that storyline to be quite silly. Then we have a Grady Hendrix. Actually, two Grady Hendrixes. Hendrixes? I am gonna eventually do a whole video about him, but I am gonna get rid of these in the meantime just because I'm not gonna reread them. This is How to Sell a Haunted House, and then this one is The Final Girl Support Group. This one is about a group of final girls, right? They've survived some sort of harrowing event, some sort of like murder spree, killing spree, something like that. And so they are all in therapy together. But then the killer comes back. So then obviously we are dealing with the aftermath of that. So she has to, like the main character, I forget her name, Lynette Tarkington. She has to go and like learn how to survive. So I thought it was a really interesting concept. And then How to Sell a Haunted House is very much what it sounds like. There's a haunted house. I thought this one was really fun. There's like, without giving too much away, there is a, like if you don't like dolls, and I really don't love dolls, anything with eyes, like mannequins, anything like that, I just don't really love. I don't love anything that's like uncanny. Yeah, like robots that look very human-like, all that stuff like kind of freaks me out. I don't like it. Anyway, and so this does have to do with like dolls and things kind of coming to life. It did kind of spook me a little bit because of that. So it's like a fun October read, but it's not legitimately scary. So if you're more like into spoopy things than like actually spooky things, then you might like this one a lot. So that is everything that I am giving to Thrift Books. I will catch you for the haul. Okay, it has been a couple of days and I've had the first couple of packages arrive from Thrift Books. Very exciting. I ended up getting not just these two, I have more things coming. These are all going to be for my Reading Around the World challenge, specifically for South America. I've decided I need to, in 2025, and I'll talk about this more in a future video, I need to focus in on that challenge and I need to focus by continent. Otherwise, I'm just not, I'm very like all over the place and scattered, and I think I'll be more productive and read more books. So I'm just gonna like start where I am in the US and then just kind of like work my way down. So I need to do Central America. I have my list for South America. And the first one on that list is this copy of Orinoco. I don't know. I really don't know. I'm gonna have to look up a pronunciation for it. This edition, which I liked so much because I think it's so pretty. It says it's an important contribution to the development of the novel in English. It predates the British abolition movement by more than a century and is also an early depiction of the dehumanizing racial violence of slavery. So this is a book about slavery. I forget what country it's for. Oh, Suriname. I've seen this country spelled multiple different ways, sometimes with an E on the end, sometimes not. So I don't know. Again, I'm gonna have to look up the pronunciation. Orinoco tells of a noble African prince enslaved and taken to Suriname, where he leads a violent revolt of the enslaved. Oh yes, and the author, who was alive during the 1600s. See, I didn't even realize that. I thought she was maybe like a modern writer writing of the past, but actually it says she was alive from 1640 to 1689. It says she is long recognized as the first professional woman writer in England. She was one of the most prolific dramatists of the Restoration period, famed for witty, often sexual, sometimes scandalous plays that frequently staged the pleasures, challenges, and dangers of women's experiences in her time. Wow, that's so cool that she's... I think this will be the oldest book that I've read for this challenge by far. Are you kidding? Here's the original cover. I'm excited for this one. I have no idea it was actually that old. Oh, okay. This is not the cover I thought I was getting. This is weird. What? Okay. Well, this has a really pretty cover. I'll pop it on the screen. This is It Would Be Night in Caracas by Karina Sanz Borgo. Okay, this is an ARC. October 2019. That's why it looks like this. I bet you this was an ARC, because usually they'll put the date on it up there. I used to work at a bookstore and we would get ARCs all the time, and so a lot of times the covers would be different. Well, that's kind of sad. That's a little bit annoying, to be honest. And I don't love that Thrift Books, that is one of the things about them that I actually really don't like. They will still sometimes send you a book that is not what was pictured at all. So that's really frustrating. So nothing special to look at, unfortunately. It says, in Caracas, Venezuela, this one's for Venezuela, Adelaida Falcon stands over an open grave. Alone, except for harried undertakers, she buries her mother, the only family she has ever known. Numb with grief, Adelaida retreats to the apartment she shared with her mother. Every night she tapes her windows shut, preventing the tear gas raining down on protesters in the street from seeping in, and waits for this nightmare to end. When looters masquerading as revolutionaries take over her home, Adelaida resists and is beaten up. This marks the beginning of a fight for survival in a country that has disintegrated into violence and anarchy, where citizens are increasingly pitted against each other. A powerful new voice, It Would Be Night in Caracas, is a chilling reminder of how quickly the world we know can crumble. We have a friend, we meaning my boyfriend and I have a friend from Venezuela who immigrated, and he's been over a couple times, and he's shown me a video on his phone. He doesn't know a lot of English, but he's shown me a video on his phone of whoever is currently in power there, and like protests and things that were happening, and I completely understand why he wanted to leave, because it was actually really scary, just in the videos, so much less like having to tape your windows up because of tear gas. So this will maybe give me a little bit of insight into what he was kind of going through and living through, it sounds like. Maybe one of these days when he learns some English, I will have to maybe mention that I've read this and give it to him, even for him to read in English, and then we can kind of compare notes. That would actually be really interesting. So this is an ARC, so it's uncorrected proofs. Typically ARCs are at a stage where they're edited enough, and they've you know, it's not necessarily the final draft of the book, but they're edited enough that it's not going to be like completely confusing. I'll still be able to follow along, but that does make me a tiny bit concerned. It is 220 pages, so if for some reason I get into this and realize it's not working, I may have to buy like a proper copy. Hello friends, welcome back to the final little segment of the video. It's the day after Christmas. I did get a few books for Christmas. I asked for 3 and I received all 3, all very different genres. So I'm going to take you through the 3 that I got. There's actually quite a few books still in the mail that I've ordered for myself. First, I did want to mention one that is on the way. Did I pre-order it? I think it's been out. Jeff Vandermeer's Absolution. He randomly came out with a 4th book that's a prequel. I progressively liked each of those books less. So honestly, if it had been like a 4th book in the series, I probably wouldn't have bought it. But because it's a prequel, I am very curious. So first up is the one I think that I'm most excited for. I've seen this online, and generally it gets good reviews, and it's usually in videos where people are talking about their favorite dark academic books. This one almost always comes up. This is Madam by Phoebe Wynne, and it's supposed to be sort of a Donna Tartt kind of secret history-esque sort of book. So first of all, like the setting, obviously, like just quintessential dark academia, and then I like that it's set in, yeah, like an all-girls school. So if you somehow don't know what this one is about, the blurb says, for 150 years, high above rocky Scottish cliffs, Caldenbray, I don't know how else I would say that, Caldenbray Hall has sat untouched, a beacon of excellence in an old ancestral castle. A boarding school for girls, it promises that the young women lucky enough to be admitted will emerge resilient and ready to serve society. Into its illustrious midst steps Rose Christie, a 26-year-old classics teacher, Caldenbray's new head of the department and the first hire for the school in over a decade. At first, Rose is overwhelmed to be invited into this institution whose prestige is unrivaled, but she quickly discovers that behind the school's elitist veneer lies an impenetrable, starkly traditional culture that she struggles to reconcile with her modernist beliefs, not to mention her commitment to educating girls for the future. It also doesn't take long for Rose to suspect that there's more to the secret circumstances surrounding the abrupt departure of her predecessor, a woman whose ghost lingers everywhere, than anyone is willing to let on. In her search for this mysterious former teacher, Rose instead uncovers the darkness that beats at the heart of Caldenbray, forcing her to confront the true extent of the school's nefarious purpose and her own role in perpetuating it. Yeah. Love that. It sounds really good. This may have to be one of the first ones that I get to in 2025. I just read, what was the one that I read that I loved so much? The World Cannot Give. That was sort of a dark academia kind of, but like with a modern twist sort of book. Yeah, I've heard good things about this. So as a fan of dark academia, I feel like I must read this book. I would love to read a whole bunch of them and then do a video one day about just dark academic books and kind of like ranking them, like tier ranking them or recommending them. Caldenbray? I could do a Scottish accent. I can do Irish like fairly well if I think of like Saoirse Ronan talking or something. So I feel like I can do Irish pretty good, but I don't know about Scottish. I love the Outlander books. So, and I've seen the show. So I know the Scottish accent, but like not as well as Irish. Like I just can't do it as well. Okay, next up is a science fiction one that I have been meaning to get to for years and years and years because one of my favorite booktubers, Sunbeams Jess here on YouTube, been following her for years, like probably a decade, I don't even know. And she did like a dissertation on this book when she was at the University of Edinburgh, and somehow I have managed not to read this trilogy, but this is The Fifth Season by N.K. Jemisin, which I didn't realize has won a Hugo, which makes it even more impressive. I want to say these are sort of like end of world, like end times post-apocalyptic type books. It's part of a trilogy. It's called the Broken Earth Trilogy. And let's see, it says, "This is the way the world ends for the last time." It starts with the Great Red Rift across the heart of the world's sole continent, spewing ash that blots out the sun. It starts with death, with a murdered son and a missing daughter. It starts with betrayal and long dormant wounds rising up to fester. This is the stillness, capital S, a land familiar with catastrophe where the power of the earth is wielded as a weapon and where there is no mercy. So, I don't know. It sounds like it's going to be pretty dark. We do have a little map in the front, which I always enjoy if it's something like really radically different. I feel like not all fantasy books need it. It's just kind of a cool thing to have, but because this book is set in one continent, like there's only one continent in this book, like a Pangea situation, is one of those blurbs that does not really tell us much. Like it doesn't actually reveal that much information, but I kind of like going into a book not fully knowing what's gonna happen or what's going on because I feel like so many blurbs actually give a lot away. So very excited for this one. I'm not a big series person, to be completely honest. Like if I don't love and am not obsessed with the first book, I will not continue to read. So hopefully I really, really like this one and I can read the whole series. And then lastly, we have a medieval horror book. This is an epic tale of medieval horror by Christopher Bullman. This is Between Two Fires. So I may have to wait until October to read this one, which feels like a long, long way away now, but I'm just such a mood reader. I feel like if it's horror, I love to like hoard all of my horror and then just like gobble them up in the month of October, like obviously because of Halloween. So that was really fun to do this year. I read a lot of good stuff in October this year, so I may have to do this with this one as well. But this one says, a brutal knight is offered one final chance at salvation. A troubled priest, lost survivor of his parish, drowning himself in wine and guilt. A young girl orphaned by the Black Death, obeying the commands of angels, both terrible and beautiful. This trio will undertake a journey across a medieval French countryside decimated by war and plague, encountering along the way martyrs and saints, brigands and fools, the damned and their hellish masters. They have little chance to save mankind, but they might, just might, save their own souls. It just sounds so cool. And honestly, look at how giant the font is. Yeah, really excited for this one. Again, might not actually get to it until October, but nonetheless, even if it sits on my shelf for a while, I had to have it. So that is Between Two Fires. Now the next video will be my 2024 like books of the year. I'm gonna take you through literally every book that I read. I read like 80 something this year, which is pretty average. So I'm gonna take you through all of those, give you, you know, sort of my top recommendations, all my star ratings and all of that. So I will see you for that video in a couple of days. I hope you guys had a Merry Christmas, and I will see you very, very soon for that video. Bye guys.